Hello, I'm Elizabeth Bertline, and today I'm going to be presenting about how to design online course components for accessibility and inclusivity. And I am giving this presentation as someone who has 14 years of experience teaching English language classes to immigrant and international students at the college level in the US. For the past 8 years, I've been an assistant professor of English language acquisition at a community college in the Midwest, where most of my students have been non-traditional immigrant students. And in the past 4 years, I've been doing quite a bit of teaching online. It started, like most people, with Zoom during the COVID pandemic. And then since then have taught some asynchronous online courses, developed some asynchronous online courses, and also some hybrid courses for 50% online and 50% in person. So I've kind of done it all as far as modalities go. And I want to say that designing online course components is not just for those who teach online asynchronous courses. Most of us have online course components in any course that we teach, even if it's a fully in-person course. Oftentimes we're using the LMS to put homework and readings and other content that we expect students to access. We might expect them to still participate in some online discussion, even if it's an in-person class. We might expect them to access assignment sheets and submit homework on there. So we're often incorporating online course components in whatever type of course we're teaching. So I think that pretty much anyone in higher ed can benefit from figuring out how to make their online course components more accessible and inclusive. So maybe it's not obvious, though, why we need to do this type of work. So I come from a writing instruction background. So the 4Cs College Conference on Composition, I don't remember what the fourth C stands for, but anyway, the 4Cs is our professional organization, and they say a lot about what online writing instruction. However, I think that most of their principles and things they say could apply to online instruction in any discipline. So they say online instruction should be universally inclusive and accessible, which I would agree with. These are just some of kind of the key words from their position statement. So we can think about making our online courses simple and intuitive so that the effort is spent on learning the content, engaging with the content, rather than spent on trying to figure out how to navigate a poorly designed online course. We want to think about linguistic and cultural diversity and making sure that our courses are welcoming spaces and spaces where linguistically diverse students feel that they can comprehend and understand what's there. Socioeconomic issues that may affect access to technology, access to academic English, level of confidence as readers. So these are all just kind of keywords from their position statement. Like I said, this is about their position statement is about teaching writing, but I really think this can apply to anyone who is teaching online or including online course components. This is a quote from Susan Miller Cochran. She says, "Language diversity is present consistently in university writing classes and on college enrollment rosters." So whether you're teaching writing or whatever you're teaching, there is a lot of language diversity there, even amongst students who don't identify as international students, who maybe born and raised in the US, maybe not first generation immigrants, but maybe grew up speaking a different language at home or speaking a different variety of English other than academic English. I mean, most of us speak differently at home than we do at school, but for students from various backgrounds, that difference can be more pronounced. So, and then I've been at a community college the past 8 years, like I said. So just another layer to think about is that 2-year college students, if you're teaching in that type of context, often, are at a face increased challenges in their education. And this can really put them at a disadvantage when an online course is poorly designed or lacking engagement. So, and a lot of students who are non-traditional learners, maybe have full-time jobs, raising kids, online education is very attractive to these students because it does allow them a certain degree of flexibility that maybe the face-to-face, in-person traditional classes do not. So, however, if these online classes are poorly designed, that can really, affect those students' ability to succeed and put another barrier in their way. Okay, so how do we do this? How can we make our courses inclusive and accessible? So a few more things from that 4C statement. So it seems obvious, but ask students to confirm they have required technology. So some colleges do this when students register for an online course. They ask them to, before registering for those, to confirm that they have a computer at home and have internet of a certain bandwidth, this kind of thing. But if your college does not do that, this is something that you as an instructor can do upfront, whether you're teaching online or in person, but you're going to expect them to do a lot of work on the computer, on using internet outside of class time, just figuring out maybe with a short survey on the first day of class what kind of technology they have access to. And keep accessibility in mind when adopting text, digital versus print, conventional versus OER. So cost is obviously a factor, but then also ability to engage with those texts. I think it's always kind of a battle in a way that the print texts do tend to cost more money, but as far as students' ability to engage with them, there's a lot of research that shows that having the print text does allow for better comprehension. So maybe figuring out ways to get OER, for example, printed for students. Reach out to students who participate less fully in online discussions or activities. So this is, maybe kind of an obvious one, but yeah, if you notice somebody who is not, doing those online assignments, activities, just reaching out and trying to keep it, no judgment at first. Just say, hey, I wanted to check in, make sure everything is okay, that you check to see that you have access to the technology you need to complete assignments. And sometimes there may be programs at your college to get laptops or such hotspots or things like that to students who don't have those things. So knowing about those programs so you can connect students if they don't have access is really useful. Presenting information multimodally. So basically multimodal just means using, in addition to text instructions, also having video and including maybe some images in there. And think carefully about cultural references and historical references. Think about people whose education maybe occurred outside of the US and who didn't learn American history, who might not know popular musicians or popular cultural figures in the US, and don't assume that background knowledge. Maybe include links to things if you're going to require a certain level of background knowledge on a certain person or topic. So, and then another good way to include multilingual students in any sort of written assignment, like online discussions or anything they're submitting written wise, is to focus on their communication of ideas first and grammatical precision second. So yeah, it's, writing in an additional language is just like speaking. Most people who learn languages as adults do speak and also write with an accent. So expecting 100% grammatical precision may just be unrealistic. And, consider whether that is what you want to focus on with your assessment or whether you really want to focus on the ideas that are there more so. And then consider cultural assumptions when it comes to plagiarism. So, obviously we don't want our students to plagiarize. We want to promote academic honesty, but in different cultures and different education systems, plagiarism is treated differently. There's different definitions of what plagiarism is. So if you do notice somebody who comes from a different cultural background plagiarizing, again, rather than coming at that with judgment, being curious, asking questions, trying to figure out what's going on, what their past education experiences were, and explaining to them and helping them learn what the expectations here are in the American education system, so that they can learn those. And that's really what it's about: is learning how to effectively participate in this system. Okay. Here are some just hints for making course documents more readable. And this, whether it's online or something that you're going to hand out to students, really these apply either way. But yeah, having some easy to identify section headers is really useful, just to navigate those documents, avoiding that wall of text appearance that can really just make students shut down, especially multilingual students who maybe see a lot of words they don't know, and yeah, I just feel like, oh, this is so dense. So breaking things up, including images, shorter sentences, if more, the official recommendation is no more than 17 words per sentence. And try using a language aimed at a student audience, using second person language. So using you, rather than like students should do this. Try to use second person language. And like I said, using pictures or graphics, you can use, pie charts, bar graphs when applicable, to really like help students visualize information more. So yeah. So Borgman and McArdle, they wrote a couple textbooks, OER textbooks for writing teachers, about how to make online writing instruction better, essentially. And they came up with this approach that they call PARS, which stands for personal, accessible, responsive, and strategic. And I find that this acronym is really useful in helping me design better online courses. So I wanted to just go through my online course, and one of my online courses, which actually is a hybrid course, but it has a lot of online course components, like I said, and show you how I apply that and make this course really personal, accessible, responsive, and strategic. Okay, so let me just open up that screen for you. Okay. And okay. Yep. Okay. Let me share. Okay. So yeah, so this is the homepage of my, like I said, it's a hybrid writing course. So a couple things for making the course personal. So one, I wanted to show you the very first, so this is the very first message students see when they log in, this welcome announcement. And in my welcome announcement, I always include a video. And that way, when students come into the course, rather than just seeing text or images, they get to hear my voice right away. And I think this goes a long way in helping them to feel like I'm present in the course, that I'm a real person. They're not just submitting something to the robot or the void. But yeah, I'm real, I'm there, and I'm there to help them. So that is one, just a really nice initial thing you can do to make your course personal, is that video welcome message. Having an image of yourself with, contact information, right there on the homepage, where it just stays there, helps students again see who you are, and then easily be able to contact you. I remember once as an undergrad, I took a online course, and this was kind of before professors could easily include video, or maybe it was even difficult to include images at that time. But yeah, I had never met this instructor, and just based on the name, I had assumed that it was a French woman for some reason teaching the class. And then I got on campus, and I actually realized this professor, I had him for another class, was a male from Ivory Coast. I mean, was French speaking, but yeah, quite a bit different than the person I pictured in my head when I was taking the online course. So it's just, it's good to give students an idea of who you are and help them envision you. So yeah, other things that I do to make the course personal. So for this particular course, it's a writing course. In week 1, in all my courses, I have students do introductions in week 1. But in this particular course, I have them do a photo essay, which is my favorite introduction activity of all of them. So I'm just going to show what that looks like. And so I actually do an example post where I share my photo essay, kind of a timeline of my life, including pictures. And again, just like giving students an idea of who I am, kind of in all aspects of my life. Obviously, share what you're comfortable with. Some people like to be a little bit more private, or some people are comfortable sharing a little more of themselves. So yeah, so I do that, and then students share their own too. And yeah, like I said, these are just really fun. It's not often we get to kind of see who our students were before they came to us and that progression. So I really like that assignment and enjoy it. It might not fit in with your class, but I think most courses you can include some sort of introduction type activity in the first week in the discussion board. To help everyone get to know each other. So yeah, I think those are the big ways that I make it personal. It's just sharing myself, sharing my voice, and inviting students to do the same. As far as making it accessible, so this is D2L, Brightspace is the learning management system that I have been using. And I know this is not a feature that's in every LMS, but if it is in your LMS, I really encourage you to use the checklist feature. So for every week of my courses, whether it's online or hybrid or even an in-person course, I have done this. I make a weekly checklist, and so students can check off what they do as they go through the week, and this contains everything for the week, and you can put different due dates. I usually have 2 due dates each week. And in that checklist, I link right to whatever content they need. So assignment sheets, rubrics, video instructions, readings, course readings, yeah, just anything they need. They can just click on it right there, and that's going to take them directly to that content. I have done a lot of tutoring as well for my college's TRIO SSS ESL program, and I have sat down with so many students who get into their online courses and they have no idea where to find the required content. And even though it's there, it's in the course somewhere and things may be organized well, this is just so much simpler for them because everything is right there in that checklist and they just click on it. They don't have to spend their time going through some sort of organizational tree and looking for that particular document that they need to complete that assignment. So that I found really helpful is the checklist. Other things is just presenting instructions in multiple modalities. So, for example, I have text instructions here. I have them read and comment on my course information document, which is sort of like a syllabus. But then I also have a video demonstrating, so especially if you're asking students to do something with technology that you think some students may not have done before, it's very useful to have a video, just screen share. This is just 4 minutes long, just screen share and show them how to do the thing that you're asking them to do. Okay, so then next is responsive, how to make your course responsive. So there's really 2 ways to make your course responsive. One way is for students to be responding to each other, and one way is for you to be responding to students. So, depending on how many students you have, it might not be possible for you as the instructor to respond to every single student every single week. So that's where, having the online discussion boards and having students respond to each other is really useful. So like I showed you before, most weeks I do online discussion, and I'm very careful to make the discussion prompts open-ended. This is the photo essay one again, but yeah, every time I do discussion, it's always open-ended, and yeah, so that it's not just asking everyone to regurgitate the exact same answer. That was another one of my complaints when I was an online student way back when, was that we had to do these online discussions, but they were essentially just closed-ended questions of like things you needed to go and find in the textbook. So everyone basically submitted the exact same thing, and then when we replied to each other, it was really hard to know what to say, because it was like, well, we just have the same answers. Okay, good job. But yeah, when I ask my students to respond to each other, I give them instructions, and I say that they should go beyond just saying I agree or thanks for sharing, and that you need to add to the class conversation by stating specific points of agreement or disagreement, or adding more details or examples. So yeah, so when students really engage with that and follow those instructions, and they are graded on that as part of their discussion participation grade, they are required to reply to at least 2 classmates in each discussion. Students get a sense of responsiveness in the course from each other. And then the second way that I respond to students is just by including small graded assignments, maybe not every single week, but most weeks I would say there's something that students submit. And sometimes it's just a really quick, me clicking through, looking at it quick and making sure that they've kind of met the requirements, and just clicking like they've completed it or they haven't. And I have rubrics built in that I can easily click that. I'm not usually typing out long, paragraphs of feedback unless somebody has kind of gone off track and they're not getting something. And this is a way of doing some course correction before you get the final assignment. You're like, oh wow, this person didn't really get what we were doing 2 months ago, so like all the pieces didn't really build on each other, and now this final assignment is really messed up. So if you include those smaller responsive activities earlier in the semester, scaffolding, some people may call them, and give feedback on those, there tend to be kind of less crises when you get to those larger final projects. Another thing that I do is I'll conference with my students on Zoom at least once a semester, sometimes twice a semester. It just kind of depends how many students I have and whether that's feasible, but either before their midterm project is due and before their final project is due, or at least before their final project is due. And that's another way to really be responsive and in a modality where it's not just reading text feedback from me. They get to hear the tone, and they get to have a conversation, and it's a back and forth. So that's really useful as well. And then finally, strategic is the last kind of letter of that PARS acronym. So strategic really means what you can do as an instructor to not burn out. As far as being strategic, for me, the main thing that I do, like I said, is I have those rubrics that I've made that I can build into the LMS and just click through to grade things. And oftentimes, like I said, if students are doing well, if their rubric scores are good, there's some automated feedback that the rubric gives them. And I might just type like a little, really good job, nice work, whatever, just to give them a little bit of personalized response. But for the most part, I trust, I spend a lot of time developing those rubrics. So I trust that the feedback they're getting from the rubric will help them improve. And sometimes instead of, writing out all my feedback too, I'll just write, please make an appointment with me to discuss how you can improve this assignment. And then I'll put a link to my office hour calendar. So, just little things like that that are going to save you time, that are still going to get students what they need and help students succeed. But you're not spending all your time, and you do not need to read and grade every single discussion post. a good way to think about is if you're doing online discussions, a good way to think about those is that is similar to like a class discussion, right? You're not going to go and listen to every single person in the class speak and give them an individualized grade and feedback for every single class period. Now, there might be some sort of participation grade. You might listen in and just make sure people are generally participating. So same with online discussions. And how I do it is that I tell students that I will be grading 2 of your discussion posts before midterm and 2 of them after. And you're not gonna know which ones that I'm gonna grade. So do your best on all of them. But I'm gonna be kind of randomly picking 2 from each half of the semester to grade. So yeah, so to just not make that burdensome and to recognize that the true purpose of the activity is for them to be engaging with the course material, interacting with each other, that it's not really a summative assessment. So yeah, that is another way to be strategic. Okay, so yes, I'm just gonna go back, share my PowerPoint again, because I do have some additional resources for you all. I can do that. Where did my Zoom go? There we go. Okay, so there is, oops, I'm sorry. Okay, there it is. QR code and also a URL that you can use to find some of the things that I mentioned in here and talked about, and get those resources for yourself. So yeah, so hopefully you got some ideas from today's presentation to help you make your online course components more inclusive and accessible. I kind of focused on multilingual immigrant students, but I like to tell people, the things we do to make things inclusive and accessible for these students are going to make them inclusive and accessible for all students. And like I said before, there's linguistic diversity in all of our classes. There are first generation students in all of our classes. There are non-traditional students, there are students with jobs, there are students with who are raising kids. We might not always see these things or know these things about our students even, but there are students who face all sorts of barriers. And yeah, so whatever we can do to help make our online course components more inclusive and accessible are going to help those students succeed. So feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or have ideas to share too. Okay, goodbye.